Afternoon, everyone. As you probably have seen in the press, it's a little crazy here in DC. I was going to give you the latest on the speakership. Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio was running as speaker. Um, After he lost for the third time this morning, they had a vote by secret ballot, and he lost over 50% of the Republican caucus. So he's not going to be considered anymore as speaker. Very unclear who's been considered next. If anyone tells you they know, they're probably lying. No one knows what's going to happen right now. Um, Acting Speaker Patrick McHenry from North Carolina is serving, as just I said, as active speaker, but unfortunately, he can't do any business on the House floor. And so the government will shut down in 28 days if they're not able to pass a continuing resolution or all 12 appropriation bills. That's on November 17th. So they want to be able to do work on the floor so they can start to put together this CR. So the Democrats, Republicans are starting to work on that to actually give him some authority. But there's been a lot of conflict, and several Republicans don't want to do that, allow him to have that, but we'll see what plays out. The president just made a really large request for both Ukraine and Israel, which the Senate is going to consider next week. The House, they also want to consider this too, so that's the reason why they're going to try to give the authority to acting Speaker Patrick McHenry. On the Senate side, they are working on appropriation bills, and they're hoping to wrap up 3 bills next week. That's considered a minibus. That includes agriculture, military construction, VA, and transportation HUD. So I've been sending Liz news as soon as I hear it. So maybe there will be some type of resolution next week. This is unprecedented.
Thank you, Lori. Is there any other updates? Doesn't.
Any questions?
Any questions, Councilmember Jurinsky? And there's no more updates. Is that correct, Lori? On anything else?
Yes, I'll just keep you posted on the continuing resolution
Okay.
to make sure
Okay.
in case there's a government shutdown.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, City Council members.
So our state legislative update, Peggy.
Hello, happy Friday, you guys. Great to see you. We have been wrapping up our legislative meetings. We had a couple that needed to be rescheduled, so we'll get those wrapped up here in the next couple weeks. But very successful. I've had some good conversations with those folks, both about the juvenile bed capacity issue, issues around public safety and transportation and safety within transportation, i.e. RTD. Lot of discussion about affordable housing and Proposition 123 and the implementation of that. We've had several in our Aurora delegation who are interested in sponsoring, co-sponsoring, supporting legislation that would at least be a tweak to 123, might provide a little bit of grace in terms of allowing us, if we're pretty darn close to reaching our capacity of, I think it's 550 or 505. If we're close to that, whether that's 80% of that or some other number, that it would give us a little bit of flex there. So working on that, and we'll continue to have those discussions with legislators and other stakeholders as we get closer to session. The interim committees that have been meeting all summer and fall are in the process of drafting bills and approving bills to move out of those interim committees. Transportation has approved 5 bills that will be moving forward next session, including railroad safety, ozone legislation. We've talked a little bit in the past about Senator Winter separately carrying legislation regarding reorganization of RTD board, perhaps adding some additional transportation oriented development. So those bills are all either moving forward to get considered by the interim committee, or in transportation's case, they've already been approved by the interim committee. In terms of affordable housing, there are discussions going on between CML, CCI, the home builders, other interested organizations about what legislation will look like for next session. A lot of discussion about construction defects. 3 issues in construction defects seem to have kind of bubbled to the top. One is statewide warranty, right to remedy, and duty to delegate. And the duty to delegate is right now what seems to happen is if there's a lawsuit, everybody on the development or on the project gets sued. This would try to narrow in on those contractors that are actually working on the project. So those bills are in discussion. Several legislators are looking at bringing legislation around construction defects. And then it appears that around affordable housing, they're going to split those issues so that they're not so many issues in one big omnibus bill, but instead there might be a transit-oriented development bill. There might be legislation that specifically focuses on accessory dwelling units. So there'll be a little bit more targeted legislation, it looks like, this year. And then just generally speaking, we've got a little bit of our own local political upheavals. You've read throughout the summer and fall about lawsuits brought by legislators against other folks in leadership. Those have now been settled, but I think there's a lot of hard feelings and a lot of irritation going on. Still some discussion as to what's going to happen with the Senate committee chairs now that Dominic Moreno has moved to the city of Aurora. We expect there will be some shifting in those committees. So there's, I think, some concerns amongst some organized groups that there weren't enough progressive bills that were passed last session. So there's a real push from some of the progressive organizations and labor organizations to make changes in committees to be able to pass legislation out of those committees and change what happened last year where some of those bills were stopped in committees. We'll see what all that looks like. Certainly, it looks like the chair of business affairs is going to be changed, which will really shift the dynamic, I think, because now Senator Rodriguez is now the majority leader. So if they put a legislator in there who is a more liberal, progressive, not as supportive of the business community, that's going to be a problematic from a lot of folks in the business community. So we'll see what all that looks like. They're talking about. I was with the President Pro Tem earlier this week. He thinks we'll have those new committees in the next few weeks. Others, I think, are more concerned that it's going to be later in the year that we'll get that information. Whatever the case is, we'll have to operate under what those committees look like. So more to come on everything, but it looks like the next couple of months there's going to be a lot of discussions around what bills are going to be coming next session and what sort of strategy we'll be using to either pass those bills or make changes or kill bills.
And thank you, Peggy, for that. So I'm going to be interested as well, even from a city level and also on a personal level, where I might go advocate on some things. I want to get a list of all the juvenile bills, every single juvenile bill that comes out, and I'll track it myself. And like I said, some of them, if I'm still on the council and on this committee, I'll advocate, according to that, my obligation there. But there may be some bills that on my own personal I may be doing some work because there's a lot that came out, but I just kind of want to get a list of from the mental health through any type of public safety bill, anything that related to juvenile. So
Gotcha.
I'll keep track as well, but if you have some information on any of those, that would be helpful for me just in general, not only on the basis of the city. And the personal thing I'll deal with on my own, but I just want to make sure I have all juvenile bills tracked for me. So.
You bet. Absolutely. We can definitely help you with that. And I see Judge Day is on, and I know that he's been a part of the discussion around the modernization of courts that we worked on passing last session. So I'm not sure if that's something. I'm happy to kind of tag that off if he's got an update on that.
Judge Day, if you have an update on that and any other court related bills, please go forward.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, Councilmember Jurinsky, and thanks, Peggy, for teeing it up. We have met in the State Data Task Force 4 times. We started in July. We still are on target to produce the report, get it finalized by December, get it voted on by the task force, and then presented to the legislature by the deadline in January. I can tell you that there's been some pretty detailed conversations, sometimes even getting to the point that I think the detail is probably getting into the weeds and sometimes probably getting us off target for what the true conversation should be. The chair of the task force is Chief Judge Flynn out of Grand Junction. I've been appointed as the vice chair. We're doing all the best that we can to try to keep everybody on focus, staying on topic for the specific purpose of the task force. I think we're going to get back to the focus that we need to be next month, get the report done. But I can tell you right now that there's been a lot of solid, positive support from both the state level and the municipal level to hopefully push forward with getting something done in the way of establishing either one of 3 different options as it relates to data sharing. So we're doing great work. That's pretty much my update. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Judge Day, so based on what you said with that timeline of December, is there a possibility or maybe there may be some legislative items that could be a result of what the task force is going to be presenting in the report, or we're looking forward to the next year?
That's a really good question. I think it would probably be pretty optimistic to see something make its way in bill form for a specific selection of one of the 3 options that I think the task force is going to put forward, to where it would be put in bill form, voted upon, and then funded. It could happen, maybe, but I would probably more realistically say that it would be presented to the legislature by way of report in January, and then we would probably be looking at a bill in 2025.
For Jurinsky, do you have any questions from Peggy's update or summary? Okay. All right. Cammie and Totsi, do you have any updates or reports from anything?
I do not.
Thank
Peggy
you.
did a great job. Thank
Okay. Okay. And I see Deputy Chief Hildebrand. Do you have anything, Deputy Chief, that you wanted to mention for us to think about going forward with the next legislative session? Anything that has come from the chief's office? Would you like to speak to anything?
No, I think the only thing that I've discussed with the chief is that there's legislation to restrict federal seizures, and I don't know if that came up at one of the prior meetings. I kind of fill in when they're not available, but that would inhibit our ability to get seizure funds to help support operations within the police department. We've relied on those seizure funds for years. So the asset forfeiture impact of that would be significant. So I know Chief Acevedo, and but even at major city chiefs, they're taking a strong position against further restricting the asset forfeitures and our ability to get seizures.
Okay. So Liz, can you have that documented so we can make sure we keep track of that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Deputy Chief. I appreciate that. And we didn't have that update before, so I'm glad
Okay.
that brought it up. So if you could keep us abreast of that,
Yeah,
that would
I
be
will.
great. So we can make sure that we have it on our priority list or watching or tracking the legislative items. So on that.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. And anything else that comes up as well, please let us know. Okay, so is there anything else from anyone who is on here that would like to speak on any type of legislative items? Okay, I don't hear anything, so we're gonna go to the water update. Kathy?
Hello. I just have one quick item. Peggy O'Keefe brought this to us. She was in touch with Senate staff, I believe, and we have been invited to participate in a panel on the Water and Agriculture Review Committee on October 31st. They're going to be discussing prohibition of non-functional turf. So it should be a very positive conversation, and that's just my informational update and only item.
Okay, will you be providing, we have one last meeting in November for this year. Will you be providing a little bit of update or context on that meeting?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, yeah, just to give us some, what happened, that would be great to give us kind of a summary.
Will do. Yep, still finding out who's on the panel.
Okay, that sounds good. Just a little update. That would be great to know. Okay, that's it. Miscellaneous matters for consideration. Councilmember Jurinsky, do you have anything? Yes.
Yeah, I just heard what you said. November's the last meeting for the year, so there's not a Pfizer meeting in December?
No,
Oh, okay,
no. I usually cut it off in November.
okay, all right, good to know. Thank you.
Because we're electing new mayor, the mayor pro tem will be electing a new chair for these committees. And so they may we usually wait until December. So November will probably be the final meeting for sure, unless there's something that comes up.
Okay,
So November 3rd.
got it.
Okay. Okay, if there's nothing else, I thank everybody for this very short meeting. I give you back a lot of your day, and I appreciate you all being here today, and have a great weekend.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Have a great
Thank you, everyone.
weekend.